So 30 seconds from beginning on preserving your genealogy records for future generations. And I'm going to go over to the share screen to show you some of the things I sent to you today for handouts. So one of the things that I sent to you is actual notes for this presentation. And of course, they won't be the examples, but they are at least the running record or the outline of the topic today. I think it's about 5 pages, just because I used big print for all of us. So I'll get out of that one. And I'll go to sources for preservation programs and advice. It's dated January 9, and it goes over various things from the National Archives, things from YouTube, places to go find some pretty neat information. It's just 1 page long, but it will begin to give you some ideas about where you can go. There's some pretty good presentations here. There's only one that eventually costs money if you choose to go into it further than the very beginning. I always try to find you things that are free. But seriously, folks, if you are considering figuring out how to take care of your various kinds of photographs, how to take care of family videos, and so on, you need to look at some of these and have them available to call up whenever. If you're not used to going out on YouTube, take time to go out to YouTube through Google, whatever, and see where this is and see all of the things that are free. Actually, for those of you who are also working with Roots Magic, all of the Roots Magic videos and helps are also out there. So this is your introduction to archiving family keepsakes, photos, artifacts. I'm not going to talk about keepsakes too much. But there are things that you have to do and things that you're going to want to have to guarantee for yourself so you know that they are well taken care of in the future when you're not here. So that's the second handout for today. I'm going to pull those handouts down and go to the new share, which is the actual presentation. And remember, this slideshow is replicated pretty much in your notes. It is there. It looks like Rosemary has entered the waiting room right at the right time. And Rosemary, just please make sure that as you come in, you mute yourself. And we will get started. And Una also has come in. So we will get started. Preserving your genealogical records, and I would advise you right away, don't wait. Don't think to the future and say, I have to do this someday. You never know when you might not be here. So I thought that was kind of neat. These people didn't wait. They recorded themselves in some way so we could see them, even though it was thousands of years ago. But now to us, to you and me, and to our busy lives and the things we kind of expect and we hope will happen when we're not here. I've got bad news for you. What do you do when no one wants your genealogy files? Now, I lucked in 4 years ago because I have a new niece who does want my genealogy files. But until then, I had no one who wanted those genealogy files. Whoops, let's just see if we can't get us back here again. And we'll go forward again. Don't expect an archive to take your 10 binders or your boxes of records. I was just talking with a lady this morning who said, oh, will you take all of my mom's stuff? And I had to say, no, what you're describing, we would not take, but we're going to advise you on how to take your photos various places, take your family records various places, and make sure they are taken care of. So that's the bad news. However, you can look for an archive or depository which is going to accept photos, official documents, and certain of your devisee or devisee materials. That devisee is that person to whom you're hoping will take your materials forward. You need to get these sent. 12 years ago, I sent all of my Nanick family records to Minnesota, to Todd County. At that same time, I sent all of my Beck family records. That means just my things like original birth and death certificates and so on, pictures, copies of these pictures. I sent those to Kandiyohi County in Minnesota because that's where my family came to when they came into the United States. That was the first and longest stop on their migration trail. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're comfortable with the idea, place your electronic database at some place like familysearch.org, which will take those for free. You need to go out and look and see if you're comfortable with this, or someplace again that will not restrict you from getting those materials or taking them off later on. I'm going to talk frankly about Ancestry.com. Yes, you can put up a tree there. Yes, you can share all kinds of information there. Be aware that when you share, for instance, your photos and various kinds of things from your family, maybe even a family story, they will tell you very frankly in your acceptance that they now own that copyright. What happens when you're no longer out at Ancestry and you can no longer restrict the use from someone else or whatever? So I don't think it's a particularly good idea for you to put an electronic database or put your materials out at Ancestry or any other commercial company unless you look carefully and read their restrictions carefully so you know what you're getting into. It's very important. You need to examine that database provider. Like I use Roots Magic. I'm familiar with Legacy, Family Tree Maker, to see if it provides permanent storage. Currently, rootsmagic.com provides a private place of permanent storage for you. Make a plan. Don't just think you will do it later. Go in and look at those things seriously. Take on just the it's a terrible thing to have to do because it involves so many things for you. But if you're going to make a plan, you have to think about what's really, really practicable for you. And that means examining where you can put those things or what you will do in the future. Long shot. You can curate the boxes of stuff you have and provide instructions inside each box for who gets the info. That's what I did before Carolyn said that she would take on all of my things. And so I do have, for my husband, I have some boxes of things that have the address of a place that would take them. They also have things for Carolyn too now. I'll tell you, it's a real yikes when you think of that, because you just don't know what's going to happen to your stuff. I mean, it could just as easily go to the garbage, couldn't it? And that would be sad. So if you're looking into finding that archive for your records, do what I did. Look for where your family first immigrated and how long did they stay there. I have families who are Nannicks today who came there in 1887 and are still there in Todd County today. So that made it a good, safe place to put those things. And I was pleased when I went there to see that they actually had the original records that I had stowed with them. But find that archive for that more permanent place. My Silesian family, that's my Nanick family. They're at Todd County. My Norwegian family records are at Kandiyohi County because they at least stayed there for 40 years. And they were prominent in the community. So I figured that if I gave them to that historical society in that county, and that's where I placed them, that they would keep them. And indeed, when I checked, they were there. So my Swedish family records, on the other hand, are included in a family search organized org file. And actually, all of my electronic records are at Family Search after I contemplated this for a long time. And my family does know what is there. My Swedish family Quist records are also out at a family database, a private family place. And that's something that is there. I know that many people who looked at my Quist family records have taken copies for themselves from there, and I'm happy that they've done that. Or maybe it's the county where you live. They have an archive. Investigate to see what records they're going to keep. My husband's family settled down in Harlowton, Montana, Wheatland County, right around 1908, and still had a homestead there 110 years later. Even though family members were not necessarily there, they were prominent in the county. And so we have lots of his records, helpful things from the family. His grandma was the county clerk and recorder for umpteen years. So all of her records are at the Wheatland County Historical Society in Harlowton. And a lot of the records for his family are at the Railroad Museum because his entire family was involved in the railroad until it left town in 1970. And there's a great railroad museum there. Next, you have to decide, what do you have? What kind of stuff do you have from others? And are you a devisee? That is, did someone from a previous generation give you their stuff in good keeping? That's what that means. And so what promises did you make to those people? And how are you going to carry that promise forward? If you have become a devisee, that is, if you have accepted things from previous generations, or you have things from your mom and pop, for example, or maybe from a brother, they've said, well, she's the genealogist, she'll take care of it. You need to promise yourself what you will do with that stuff, and you need to curate it carefully. If it's available, for instance, and you can copy it in some format, or you can even scan it today, and you know the format is safe, you want to at least do that so you have one other record of what you've taken in. What have you created? Or what have you found that was really unique? I mean, I have my grandfather's actual court records from when he changed his name in 1912. And that's pretty big for us because actually I'm the second generation that uses the surname that he selected. That is Lee. So do you have a devisee or devisee or legatee for your genealogical works and your family history? It's important that you do and that you've discussed it with that person. Don't think that somebody's going to have to take it because what else would they do with it? Unfortunately, we've heard many stories of things being burned because people just said, not in my thing to do, not there. It's great that's there, but somebody else must have it, so it doesn't matter. Oh boy, it matters. So a devisee or devisee is one to whom a devise of property is made. They are beneficiaries. And believe it or not, you can put these in your will, your official will. They are a gift of real property, and they should be assigned as such. It's a very important thing for you to be able to do. You can do this formally in a will and testament. I did this 5-6 years ago. Finally, there is a listing of people, and I have also modified it so that Carolyn is again included, and so that everybody knows what's in that will and testament when it is formally completed as a probate. It can be done informally. I actually have this part too in my will. I have a list of specific items that go to specific beneficiaries in my family, and they're going to be carried out by Shari, my will administrator, who is also my personal representative. I'm going to warn you, though, there are time limits. When that personal representative or will administrator is ready to say that your will has been totally probated, there is an end to this. And at that point, the list of specific items can become moot. So don't wait. Also, let people know it's there. You can do things like if you've got special family pictures, like my husband's family, his grandma painted a gorgeous picture of a road right along Glacier Park. It's much treasured. The list of people to whom it goes beyond 2 more people, and it's on the back of that picture. Name that devisee and make your wishes known and avoid fights, or also avoid the idea of nobody knew, so they said, let it go, because that can happen. I'm just going to show you a few things that I've actually seen from people. So there's this thing from Lyons and Jones Looking Glasses. It's a picture to the, it's an envelope inscribed to the Honorable Abraham Lincoln in Springfield. I think that's kind of an important thing. And a family was wondering what to do with it. And it ended up, believe it or not, back in Springfield, Illinois, at the Presidential Library. Was it just from someone like you and me? Yeah, it was. Make plans. Whoops, I skipped backward. Or maybe it's something like Sigmund Freud's family tree that's out there. And this one is actually in the public domain out at the Library of Congress. And thank goodness somebody put it there, because there's handwriting here, folks. And it's probably from Sigmund or one of his close relatives. There are ways that you can do these things. Please make sure that you have muted yourself, because I hear someone who is not. Or maybe it's your actual probate of will. And maybe these are the handwritten things that have been put into your will besides that which was entered into court. Or you discover that you had a will and it never got probated, but you have it in your family papers. You have to think about where this goes. It can still go back to that original county that would have handled it. So you have to begin to think on what you're going to do with these. So you're going to make a plan. Let's get started. What do you need to do to preserve your genealogy records? First of all, inventory, or at least make a pile. You've got a pile. You might have a whole room. We've had people say, oh my goodness, I have a whole house. In fact, that happened this morning at a presentation that we gave, and everybody laughed in full and then kind of snickered, looked around at each other and said, yeah, I've got some of that too. So make some kind of an inventory of what's reasonable. Plan to scan your documents and photos so you have at least a second copy of materials. If you're in our library, in the Great Falls Genealogy Society Library, we do have a scanner you can use. No, we will not check it out. We do have one small one for checkout, but we will not check it out generally, but we will allow you space. And if you plan your time with us, we will allow you a place to be able to do that if it's not too huge. No, we're not going to scan 50 million things. If you have a will, name the devisee, note how your records are to be transferred. Include that brief list of contents so somebody doesn't say, she promised that to Aunt Judy, I'm going to take that. Do a set of instructions to your administrator, which includes time, when it's going to be done. For example, upon my death, or when probate is complete, because there are people who have complained and said, we just sent Aunt Judy to a home and we were over there and we discovered that this other family that we know has gone in the back door and started removing things. Nobody wants those things to happen. Ask your devisee if they want the actual photos and docs or just the scans. Yeah, I ran this past one of my friends and they said, no, don't ask them, because they're going to pick the easiest thing. But I'm saying you really do in good conscience need to ask this and then explain why those actual photos and documents are precious to you, so that they know what's going on. Make scans for other relatives who request them. And Here's what I do. First of all, devote just an hour a day or less. Don't do everything at once. Don't say, I'm going to spend 1 week and I'm going to get everything copied. And at that time, whatever I don't have copied just can go free, because you will disappoint yourself. Organize your photos by family surname and date. If you have not written a title, or a descriptor of your photos, get started. If you scan your photos, do these things in small batches and type in the title you want. Get it done, because you're the only one who can do it. There's nothing worse than seeing whole bunches of things that are thrown in the garbage because nobody knows who the family is. Organize your documents by type and date. Place these in archivally safe files and containers, and do them in small batches. I'm trying to convince my husband of this, and so I have placed a small bundle of just 50 things on the table with my small scanner, and I have hopes. Or select one item to get started. Organize the piles of information you haven't put into your database yet and get this done. There's nothing worse than going someplace, having deep satisfaction with having garnered a whole bunch of information from an archive or a genealogy library, and then saying, well, I was there 3 days. I got a lot of stuff. I'll get this done later. No, you have to get this done. I can't do it.
She can't do it, right?
Start organizing your photographs. Attend a workshop to aid you in safely archiving family photos. I really recommend this. That's why I'm giving you that list of things that is your second handout thing today. Be safe in what you do with actual photos. For goodness sakes, if you've got all kinds of photograph albums and they are out online, or they're not out online, and you know that you've got that icky plastic on top of them, do what you can right now to renovate these, restore these, or take care of them. And I'm just letting someone in. I apologize. And whenever I do that, I think I have to go backward, folks, so that I can go forward. Yeah. Ensure that photos are scanned and identified by persons and put into a family file. Do them again in batches. Otherwise, I will guarantee it, you're going to quit. Don't be a quitter. This is just too important. Put that particular file into a larger family file on your thumb drive or hard drive. That's how I have all of mine. Believe me, when somebody says, would you send me a packet of that stuff? I calmly say, no, but I have invested in thumb drives and I am willing to give you that thumb drive. Or if you're not willing to do that, you can say, send me a thumb drive and I'll do it for you. But no, there will be no paper copies exchanging hands. If you garner more photos after that initial batch, then you got to repeat. It's kind of like, doing the wash each week. Get it piled up, put it in, wash it, dry it, fold it, and then repeat. Organize those documents. This is different again from the photos. Maybe it's an original marriage certificate. Maybe it's an original record of your entry into a church. And I'm careful about that because not every church does immediately a baptism, but they will have ways in which they have welcomed you into the church, and there are official documents for that. And you want to preserve those. They also require you utilizing careful preservation guidelines. Place them in archivally safe folders. I frankly, I only keep a few of these. I sent a lot off to Todd County because I had a lot from the Nanick family. I took careful care of those and made sure that everything I'm showing you here was done. I put archivally safe paper between the documents, and I have to thank Sister Frances X. Porter of the Ursulines for alerting me to this practice years ago and making sure that they are archivally safe, and then actually testing that paper with a particular kind of pen to make sure that material really is safe instead of just accepting the seller's word for it. So I scan the photos, and within the file, I ensure that I have a written note which details the topic, maybe even the type of scanner used, the date, and reminder to update that type of scan if ever needed, especially if you're scanning things that you've originally done, like Excel files or something. But for example, my topic, the Beck censuses in Norway and in the United States, I did them on a flatbed at home. I had the file converted to PDF, and there's no need to update because they're in a PDF format that I know is safe right now. So my yearly plan for preservation or distribution includes a thumb drive right now. You can use a hard drive, thumb drive, whatever. No, I did not. I went out. I had a common place out in the cloud for a while, but I found that people were storing all kinds of photos that made no sense. They just regarded it as a safe place for them, and they were not following the guidelines. So I returned to using a thumb drive, and this kind of storage works for me right now. I use the thumb drives. They're not just updates. I don't count on it. I know I found a couple of people saying, you know, those thumb drives are really neat, but I used them for something else and I can't find it now. I send them once a year. I PDF my Roots Magic files so they can read them. I put all the photos in that I've got. I know that when I do that, what I'm doing is including everything I've done through the year, and I don't have to figure out what's the latest. So I eliminated the headache for me. So you're going to organize your families. If you have paper records, remember, they are still databases. I didn't mean to say databases. I meant to say databases, just like computer files are. So it's a database, even if you only have paper records, which many, many people do. If you have electronic files, name the software or application you used, especially if you have forgotten to PDF these things. And by the way, all of these things I've named here, Roots Magic, Family Tree Maker, Legacy databases, they all have applications where you can easily PDF your work. So it's not big. It takes all of maybe 2 seconds to be able to do that. Decide what you're going to include. Are you going to do everything? Boy, that's gigantic. Or only a family tree going back a certain number of generations? Are you going to include individual files, family group files, sources? Are you only going to do paper? And if so, I think I'm getting some feedback on this because somebody opened their... These are the things you do with paper files. Also, your timelines, very important to your family. Here are some advantages of being in the electronic age. Leave an electronic copy with a trusted source. And PDF your database by type of report so that they are aware of all the types of reports they can get. I mean, there's nothing just like having your brother say, okay, so that's 6 generations again. Who the heck is this guy anyway, as compared to me? And it was his great, great, great grandfather in straight line. And sometimes I promise that I'm going to haunt people who don't pay attention to these things, but I have to admit, no, we can't do that. Going to be tempting to see if they can hear me later on. I'm going to show you my individual summary. This is different from a family group sheet summary. So you could do these kinds of things in any of these 3 formats I've talked about today, Roots Magic or Family Tree Maker or Legacy, for example. And actually in most all of these things, you can do this, including Family Search. You can go out, you can do individual summaries, you can do family group summaries and so on. But what it lets me know is it gives people my individual facts in a timeline database. And it also, by the way, here, what people are going to say, what's this RU152 stuff and this K1C1B? Well, my DNA is very important to me. So they are the primary family groups that my DNA belongs to. And I've taken them back to father and mother and so on backward. So it lets people know my birth. If you're looking over at the far right and you're looking at small footnote numbers, that's just what those are. Those are the footnotes that are replicated in this same file for all of my sources, so they know what I actually used and what is available there. Roots Magic endnotes are also there. This just shows you again some of these endnotes. And I also have, and all of these databases have an index of names within the database. That's useful when you're going to compare with other trees, or say that you're out in Ancestry and you're trying to compare DNA surnames and figure out where a surname came from. If you've got all these surnames listed within your program, guess what? You have that automatic list so that you can begin your search. And so in mine, it names the families that are connected and what generation they're connected in even. And this is a Roots Magic database, but I can tell you Family Tree, the Family Tree Maker database has this, and so does Legacy. I do, however, always recommend, and in my workshops with you, I'm always going to tell you that you need to be doing timelines. Timelines are really important because even though Roots Magic or Legacy or Family Tree Maker allow you to put down your personal database or to include facts from other family members, to include or not to include, in fact, it gives you choices so that you can cover things up that you don't want out there, for instance, for people who are currently alive. But this allows you to put in other things. For instance, if you actually looked at my Lee family timeline for me, you would see that something very important to me happened in November of 1963 when I was a senior in high school and President Kennedy was assassinated. Yes, I have that in my timeline with a little tiny sketch of what I was doing that day. And what feelings I had and so on. For everything personally, like 9/11, I have that. For January 6th, I have that. For the times when a new president comes on, all of the various presidents, I have that because it records for people in my future generation. It records what I was doing and what the family was doing. It also means I can carry just a family timeline with me, and I don't need all those sheets of paper because on my timelines, I put all the surnames I've found associated with my Lee family. I've put them at the top, as you can see, because maybe they're names that we married into, or they married into us, or whatever. I also put places that are associated with those surnames because now that I'm going out and looking at DNA, frequently people will say, oh, well, I'm from New York. We couldn't possibly be related. Or my name is a Spanish surname. I'm saying, wait a minute, I haven't come across Spanish surnames. And by golly, by gum, I did this year in my family. And so now I have another one of those names that are associated, actually not in the Lee family timeline, but in my Beck. Yes, I have these for 19 different timelines. No, I didn't do them all at once. I've worked on them for 20 years. But the other thing I like when I'm able to do this is I'm able to put comments in, for instance, about my grandfather supposedly being named for one George Lee. It's been investigated. It has not been proven. I think his mommy fibbed. But I digress. So these are some of the things that you can do when you use paper files or when you use various kinds of electronic databases. And these are the things you need to begin to think about when you are trying to put all of these materials together. If I had a live camera in here today, because I'm in the library in Great Falls, I would show you 4 boxes stowed on the floor, down from 10 boxes that we had from the Lewis and Clark Library. And they got those boxes actually from the Montana Historical Society Library. And they are the remains of things that were done by family devotees 40 and 50 years ago. And we're working our way through them. No, we nor most other libraries will not take your actual electronic, or I should say at least your paper particular documents for it, because we would run out of wall space in Nothing Flat. But again, we will show you how to save those in various formats in which we can save them, ways in which we can scan them and put them out for various places. For example, you may not be aware of it, but we probably have about 300 plus family histories in our library. And it saddens us frequently because people come in and sit themselves down to the computer immediately and assume everything will be there. I can tell you that there are family histories that you should be looking at. And again, people assume they're going to be out online. They're not always there. You should look for some of those and be aware that when you're using any of those books, of course, you're going to have to confirm the facts for yourself to make sure that they are right. There's nothing worse than getting a family tree from online or someplace else that is not proven, for which you do not have, for example, all of the sources and materials or even pictures of what they did. You all probably know what crummy or lousy work looks like from having looked at some of these trees that were done very, very quickly. I can tell you that today, if you go out to familysearch.org and you go out in their search element online and you look for a thing called books, it will take you to a site for which they do have many of these actual books scanned and available to you for free and available so you can pull them up to your own laptop or whatever, so you can begin to compare the information and see for yourself if it is well documented. I would advise that anytime you're using these, even if you find one from 2 centuries ago, please make sure it's well documented and that you can actually go find these materials through, maybe if you're from if your family was originally one of the colonists in Virginia or on the Eastern Seaboard or over in New England, that you go out, for instance, to American Ancestors, or you go out, for example, to the Virginia Historical Society and begin to confirm some of those things to see that they really did use the materials they said they used. You need to be very careful, in other words. But as we all know, family histories and our genealogies are well worth the time and efforts. Indeed, as we investigate these particular programs they are programs within our families. As we investigate these, we gain in our understanding and our critical use of good reading strategies and sleuthing strategies, and we're even able to share that with other people. So in wrapping this up, I would say you need to make an independent timeline because it's going to help you. Nobody, by the way, when you walk into a research center, wants to see all your piles of paper. They want to see either the scans or the things that you're working with at the time. And the straightforward thing that I can think of is a family timeline. When I went to Norway, and I wanted to use the archives there. I had only my family timeline there with everything carefully documented. So that meant I had my sources documented there. It was about a 30-pager, and I was lucky because they did let me bring that in. I had to put it in a file outside of the archive at first, and they had to go look at it to ensure that I could bring that in. And believe me, then they kept me under a very good archival eye. That is one where they had security guards, et cetera, because how do they know I wouldn't try to slip something in there or take something out? So you always have to make plans for where you're going and what you're doing. So you're going to want that timeline, and you're going to want the scans out there and available to your other family members now, preferably, not in the future. Make plans. When I first started doing my Christmas tree kind of thing for people where I gave them a thumb drive, I did not have all of my family trees in there. People would come back and say, but why didn't you have this family tree? And I'd say, well, that's not on my side, so I can show you how to do your side. And sometimes that really worked out well. I have 19 big family trees and materials that I share, about 17,000 people that I have researched. It's taken a long time. It's going to take you some time, but it's worth it. And so I'm saying, do that now. And by the way, whenever you're doing a presentation like this, if you have this neat painting, like I had that cave painting at the beginning, I found this out at Library of Congress under a free documentation license, and I'm duly telling you where this is now. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to get out